All right, good evening. Welcome, welcome. How y'all feeling tonight? Good. I am Lilith Rose, and this is Psych 101, and we are live at the RVA Boombox. So I'm excited to be here. This is the second season of this show, and I feel like we are doing things on another level this season. So that kind of ties in to the theme of the night. If you watched last season, I start every episode with an opening line from a song. So it pertains to the theme of the night. Let me get tonight's opening line. All right. I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. Quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA. I got hustle, though, ambition, flow inside my DNA. So, can anybody tell me what song that opening line is from? Yes, yes. All right. I usually would have a prize. I don't have any prizes tonight, but I'll get you a shot later or something. But yeah, so this opening line, first off, I'm going to take this to introduce my DJ of the night, Tay, because that's who I got the opening line for tonight from. What's up, Tay? Thank you so much. This is actually, we just met tonight, but we already have such a chemistry. I told him the topic of the night, and he was right on it. Um, and we shared an artist that we think is on that level. So we're going to get to that a little bit later. But I want to go ahead and bring up my guests for the night who both inspired this topic of God tier. So my two guests, Radio B and Randy Wilson. Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for coming out. Welcome, welcome. All right. So, Radio B, I actually got this notion from you. And I know that it's not a new notion that was invented, but last year you held a lecture at Virginia Union University where you taught about God's here and what it takes. So, can you speak a little bit on that?
Yes. The lecture. Well, the lecture came about because last year I was artist in residence for Virginia Union University. So I wanted to. I've wanted to hold like classes and workshops on lyricism for a long time. So I figured, institute a higher learning. Why not? Do it there. So that was one of my I guess say projects with Virginia Union University was to have an open lecture with myself and Nicholas F. about lyricism at the highest level. So that was what that conversation was about. So it's really about transcending craft into something more divine. So it's when you've elevated your craft to a point where you kind of go into a level that's relatively autopilot because there's a spiritual element to it at that particular point. But in order to get there, you have to have mastered the craft to an extent where you no longer have to practice it. You just, it is a part of who you are and how you go about doing the craft. So that was the premise of God's here as a title. But the lecture itself was more so about getting into the elements and getting into the devices and the different tactics and things that we utilize to become high level lyricists.
Yes, yes. So specifically with that, you touched on different things like storytelling and different things. So can you share some of those things that you feel make a lyricist God tier level?
Oh man, it's hard to sum up. There are a lot of literary devices that we use. But really, I believe that all um, talented lyricists begin with taste, right? Like taste, and that's one of the things we didn't talk about in the lecture is taste in itself, is because it's hard to teach that, right? Um, Taste is what allows you to kind of get an understanding of the difference between levels, right? It's like everybody can rap, right? But it's like, how do you determine good from great. You know, we look at like good is the enemy of great, right? Because you can be good at something, and you can rest on your laurels because enough people will tell you that you're good at it, and you can actually make money being good at something. You know what I mean? Being good enough. You know, and because you're good, it blinds you from what it actually takes to be great. And you know, I think a lot of us in life, just in general, beyond rap, you know, we can get caught up in being good. You know, I'm good. This job is good. It's a good job, right? You know, this relationship I'm in is good. It's cool. You know, it don't. You know, it doesn't rock the boat. You know, but you know, it would prevent you from possibly, you know, reaching, you know, doing what your purpose is. You know, so.
I like that. I like that. Good is the enemy of great. Mr. Wilson, what do you think about that? I want to extend it beyond just lyricism and just God tier in general, because again, I feel like you can be God tier in anything that, you know, athletes, professionals, whatever. So share some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, you know, I grew up with parents that introduced me to God at a young age, you know, and God is like the Almighty. God is everything. God is powerful, right? And I think, you know, growing up through church, I learned, you know, like we should desire to do great and be great and want great in everything we do. So when I think about God, that's it. You know, God is everything at the highest power. When I think about the tier piece, I think about like a space, you know, a space, an atmosphere where I feel like those two things come together, you know.
Right.
And so when radio to some degree put the words together, you know, I think it made it very easy to interpret and understand on how do you apply that aspect to your life, you know. And for me, I feel like it's my responsibility as a person, because I desire to live forever, you know, that I do the best I can in taking my steps on this path and in this life as it is right now, so that I can accomplish that, you know. And so the things I do on this earth, you know, whether good and bad, you know what I'm saying, but the motivation for everything really is good, you know. And I tend to believe that if I do right and I make those forward steps, then I will live forever. And to me, that is God tier, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
And also, you know, that makes me want to double back on the true source of it, in a sense, and is that for me, and in my beliefs, is that, you know, when they say, you know, God made us in His image, right? We're not talking about physically. We're like, we don't look like God. What it was, the image aspect of made in His image means that as God creates, He created us with the ability to create and be creative. He made us for the purpose to be creative. So when we're not being creative, we are actually wasting our lives, you know. And they talk about, you know, another thing that is that our creative energy is aligned with our sexual energy, right? I mean, you got to think about that. Procreation is having a child, you know. In order to procreate, you know, so it's like, think of why that word procreate was attached to having a child. It's like the ultimate level of creation, right? Like that is creating at a professional level. It's unfortunate that we tend as human beings to do it in such a casual way, right? But procreation means that creation at the highest level, right? And I think outside of that, you know, technologies, everything that we're doing, art, expression, all of it is us creating in as baby gods, is in the likeness of God, but not at His level, right? You know, but creating in a divine space.
Yeah, you know, when we was children, we were as children, you're an artist first. The first thing you are in your life as an artist, as a child, you learn to write, draw, paint, sing, dance. That's what we. And so as we become adults, sometimes we get away from that, right? But when when I think about the whole God tier thing, it's like, and I've said this on my podcast before, like we got to remember that regardless if we're not, when we don't even think about what we're doing, we're living and we're creating life. You know what I'm saying? And that's the most beautiful thing that any person can create, whether it's creating a child or if it's creating a direction for how they want to go forward in their life. So I just remind people all the time, like, you're an artist too. We all are artists
We are
because
all
we're creating
artists.
we're creating our life. That's the most beautiful thing
Right.
that you can create. Our existence here in this self, in this physical moment, not just physical moment. The time, like everything is a part of God's creation. That's why.
I love it, absolutely, and I'm so obsessed with that idea of bringing things from from your spirit into fruition, into real life. So
100%.
I want to talk about some people that do that well, some people that you guys identify that are on God tier level. So who are some of your God tier people that you would identify?
Hove.
Yeah,
We can go and get that out of the way.
Jump out. Yeah,
Let's go and get that out of the way.
he said Hove, Jay-Z. I agree. I agree. When speaking of my craft in general, we talk about rap. I feel like, when we have those GOAT conversations, he's a person that the top of the top for me. Just body of work, just the thoughtfulness of it and the consistency of it. But if we get outside of rap, then we could talk about somebody like D'Angelo when we were in Richmond,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So I look at D'Angelo as a God tier musician. It's a divine thing. It's like it's a gift. You could tell it's a gift, but it's also a gift that's been honed and crafted and nurtured, right? But these are the things that you have to do. You have to water. This stuff, in order to be fruitful, in order to be abundant. So yeah, I mean, there's, we can get
Obama. Obama's God tier, yo.
That's
For, for a man to be able to, for a black man, first off, to be able to hold his position as a leader for our country, and I'm not even trying to get political, but the reason why it's like he got in and he got out without having the blemishes on his record of the typical niggardry shit that we do. I mean, you know what I'm saying? He don't have anything that left behind him that went really ungodly. I mean, war and things happen, but like, it ain't the typical stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think for us to have in our generation to see a black man in that example, like, if we don't hold him in a high regard, crazy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, Tay and I earlier were kind of bouncing off ideas of who we think is God tier level, and he had offered somebody that I also thought was God tier, that was Lauryn Hill. But I have a very specific era of Lauryn Hill, which is Fuji's era Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
So I want to play just one verse of one song just for Exhibit A.
The Score is one of my favorite albums.
Yes, yes.
Yo.
You can turn it up a little more. Come on.
All that shit.
Come on.
Freaky style with your rehearsal. Come friend, mon frère. Don't you leave me loaded. Be without a mic in front of beat without a snare. I ain't dead. Consider until you go. We go. Wait, but there's some logic in Calico. Or Calico. Station. My decisions you and that. That is what do the wrong me. So, if you can't get with this, we're going to make this dangerous like syphilis.
Yes, yes.
That was God.
Come on. God tier in 98.
Yo,
Come on.
Yeah.
And I got to tell the story of how I was introduced to Lauryn Hill because a lot of people meet her at different stages. But I was in 6th grade, and my favorite cousin, East Gummy, rest in peace.
That's your cousin?
Yes.
Did you
yes,
know? Did you know that's?
Yes. So he brought the score over to my house and played this for me. And already I idolized my cousin. But I'm just thinking he's the coolest ever. And he's turning me on to Fugees. So that's how I met Lauryn Hill, and I was instantly obsessed. And I feel like any female artist, because you don't add a lot of female names into God tier. I mean, naturally, we listen to a lot of female rappers today, but any female rapper today is influenced by Lauryn Hill, whether they know it or not. So that's my submission for God tier.
That's crazy. Can I hug you?
Yeah.
That kind of messed me up. That was.
Yo, let's not act like Lauryn Hill wasn't God tier and Sister Act 2, though.
Come on.
That's where it
Also,
started. That's where it started.
Rita? Yes,
Man.
yes.
He's scummy.
Yes. So going on with nominations for God tier, obviously I have both of you on this show because I feel like you all operate on God tier levels. The confidence with which you operate, just your knowledge of self, and just the creativity that you display. It's just really amazing to witness and to experience. So I wanted you both to kind of share your journey to God tier and how you got to this space of knowing who you are and having like an unwavering confidence and knowledge of self.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, and first off, thank you. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge your tier. I mean, because just to do this podcast stuff and to walk into, like, I'd been watching your episodes from last season anyway, because I think it was a couch here. I was watching.
There was a couch. It was
And
nice.
I was just super impressed. I was super impressed just with the whole, because I respect what goes into it. And to be able to see how your thing's elevating. So
Thank you so
for
much.
your
I
kind
appreciate
words.
that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so you asked the question again.
Oh yeah, your journey to
Your
God
journey.
tier.
The journey. Yeah,
your
the journey. I mean, I think that I mean, to receive your kind words for me is hard because the way I operate, the way I really attempt to operate and going through life, I try to be knowledgeable about what I'm doing, in regardless of whatever that is. But for me, the key is to remain humble, to remain sincere to myself, and I know we're gonna talk later about ego, but to try to manage all of that, you know what I'm saying? To be as human as possible. Like, I try to have conversations in all aspects of what I do every day in a manner that is as simple and as common sense as possible. I'm a believer that, like, labels conceal that more than they reveal. So I don't want ever to be in an interactive situation with a person, whether it's a client or business, and we are talking to each other in a way that you see me any other way other than just for how I'm presenting. And so when we level set, I think that's what really, I think that's the best way we can exist as God's children, quite frankly, because we really are all peers of each other. But when we get caught up into, status and thinking that we're different, which we all have our differences, that in itself, I feel like, that smears the image a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And that doesn't make people receive you as authentic. So I want to be as, normal is possible. And not normal from the standpoint as human, understandable, relatable. So because I feel like that's required for true, connectivity to occur.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you also have the confidence though to operate on a level where, like, even the people that you interview, you're not just interviewing anybody off the street. It's like the mayor, for instance.
Yeah.
It's very intentional with regard to the level with which you operate.
But the key to that, I'm gonna tell you what the key to that is. The key to that is helping, like with the mayor is a good example. Like, I talked to him about this. Like, I give him street cred. I humanize him for an audience of people to listen to what he has to say, because the audience that listens to what a lot of people who listen to my podcast, and similar probably to you, they probably not catching content from CBS 6 or the news. So like, my goal is to help people. Like, listen, let's talk. And that's kind of how I approach my guests in the relationships. And radio is, me and radio have done tons of podcasts. You know what I'm saying? I was just recognizing, this is, I'm not saying this for clout. I'm saying this because I ain't talked to him lately. Butt dialed him the other day. Paul's on Super Bowl, but I ain't talked to him. The podcast was recognized recently, and in the Richmond magazine, in the context of how the magazine was, how my podcast was recognized, we recognized your community conversations, most recently with Mayor LeVar Stoney, Radio B, and some HCA executives.
Wow.
Why?
Nice to
Why?
tell. Yeah.
That's it.
I like that.
Because the people who listen to the mayor, they need to know their community leaders like Radio B.
Absolutely.
And Radio B needs to have his message and voice needs to be connected to the political folks who are watching the podcast only because of him. So that's the role I feel like I play, because I am both. I'm both.
Absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
hip hop and I'm civic. You know what I'm saying?
And it's important.
Yeah, we got to be both.
Absolutely. Thank you. Radio, what about you? Your journey to God's ear?
I feel like, it goes back to, my previous answer. Like, obviously, I think we're all born with that, that's the path, that's the journey that we're placed on when we get here, right? By God, it's just a matter of us actually identifying what that path is for us. What is that purpose? What is it that clicks for me? What is it that interests me? What is it that calls on me? And you start feeling that, in different ways as a youth. And just like Randy said, you can lose your way because this, and that's what the Kill the Dreamer concept comes from. It's like, we all have these interests. We all have these things that speak to us. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations. And a lot of the times we're discouraged or we're distracted or we're misguided or we're, we are dealing with trauma, we're dealing with poverty, we're dealing with, systemic things that are preventing us from being able to, not preventing us from doing it, but preventing us from being able to identify what we should be doing and having the confidence to walk it down. So I say from my journey, it's really when I identified, rap, as something that I could do, right? And being fortunate enough to be around people that could nurture and kind of put the battery in my back very early. I was in school with, people like Michael Millions, with people like Ella Styles, who, also were developing these talents and we were recording while we were still in high school and, in Illa's bedroom, so it's like the thing about that is like, if you don't have those seedlings of, hey, this is something you can do, right? It takes you, you may never actually, gain the confidence to walk it down. So for me, it's been a journey of once you realize, okay, this is my purpose, right? This is not only not rap, but when you realize what rap can do for people around you, when you realize what your message is, when you realize your words are impactful and that people are living their lives by them, and you start to uh, extend that into other talents and other platforms and other ways that people are able to live their lives in more positive manners and are finding themselves through you in some way. Once you realize that, then it's a matter of, for me, it's, rapping really, really well is also me being able to say the same thing in many different ways and say many different things. So the more ways that I can communicate, the more people I can touch. The my skill level now at this point is also about how I can tap into another human being. It's not just how well I can put metaphors together or how well or how many entendres I can use, but that part of it is fun for me. That part of it is what allows me to flex among my peers.
Show
You
the
know,
skill,
yeah. But it also is a identifier of the level of artistry that I've taken it to, right? So being heralded is not just for the sake of my ego, it's more so for the sake of my legacy, right? And that's, for me, legacy is bigger than anything else, right? It shows God if I did my homework, right? Like, I don't get to, I don't get to go up and just say, hey, well, I left it the way it was, or I left it worse than it was. I want to be able to say I left it better than what it was, right? And so at this point I tie my craft to that. My craft is tethered to that purpose.
I want to share one thing, and I'll make it really simple. Because after hearing his answer, it made me think about, you know, because it's Psych 101, in the context of that, part of my motivation in life is a balance of unhealthy and healthy fear to fail. That's being very honest, vulnerable. Like, and it started at a young age when my parents showed the damn belt switches and you know what I mean, straight up. Like, fear at a young age gave me motivation. And when I left home to go to college, the fear was not to fail and end up back home like most of my friends. Most of the people I grew up, like, you left, you can't go back. You going to play ball, you can't go back because that's what everybody do. So throughout life, I mean, it may sound bad when I say this, but this is a healthy space, right? Like, I was, as a younger person, fear of having a child and not being prepared. Like, these are things as a young man that I really dealt with because I was reckless. I was out here. I was doing whatever, just like most of us do, right? But the fear of knowing that, one, look, my mom was before God in my eyes sometimes. Like, one, my mom, I can't embarrass my mama. I can't, I can't let my mama down. And two, this is how was you raised? You know what I'm saying? Like, I always know that God's looking at me. Always. And that is enough sometimes for me to curve. And I feel like, going back to a child, right? When you're a child, those things they stick with you. The older you get, the more you lose touch with you lose discipline. You lose your discipline, And so that's when you become of the world and you become less godly.
I like it. I like it. One of the things that both of you guys had mentioned was ego.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of tie that in again with the psychology of it and really explain what ego is, because I think it's a word that we throw around a lot and people probably misuse it a bit. So ego is the part of your identity that you consider yourself. It's the only part of your conscious personality, and it's what you are aware of when you think about yourself in the world and what you try to project outwards.
Yeah.
So really, essentially, how you feel about yourself and
Yeah.
your self-esteem, your self-confidence.
Yeah.
So I feel that ego is necessary, having a healthy ego.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it takes to believe in yourself and to be successful in this world. So
Yeah.
just wanted to get some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we all got it. When I think about ego, I think about my gut. And I think maybe that takes me back to us. You know, we originally met each other because of this psychology stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and like I think I remember in school that ego is kind of aligned with gut instinct.
Yes.
You know, and
yes.
a lot of and when we operate off gut and instinct, sometimes that's the true self of who we are. I'm a believer that you know, there's a balance between like how we operate from what comes from our brain, our practical thinking, you know, our logical, and what comes from our stomach. Now, when they equally match well, it's a reason why our mouth is in the middle. I feel that way. You got your heart here, you got your brain here. It's a reason I feel like your mouth is right here. It's a reason why your ears are right here. All this shit is not just here.
I like
It's
it,
not
yeah.
just here. It's all
By
right, for real.
coincidence, right?
It's a reason why ears, eyes, brain, stomach. It's a reason for all this. But it all comes out here. Unless you're talking at your ass, right? If you're talking at your ass, you completely are talking from your ego. That's why it's coming out your
Right,
ass.
right.
It ain't had no opportunity for any type of logical
rationalize, yeah.
So that's how I look at ego. And we all got one. I think the key is how we balance our practical, logical.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of creative stuff that comes from. You know, I don't want to knock the creatives. We all creative, though. You know what I'm saying? But you ask yourself, you know, are you more calculated and executed when you creatively are all here? You know, it's a balance. And God's here, love's here, right? So it's my 2 cents.
I think your ego, we all, you know, we go back to a whole quote, right? We say sometimes you need your ego. Keyword, sometimes. And I think what happens is, you know, especially in a sport like rap, you know, you kind of, there's the braggadocio, like, ego, like, you need that level of confidence to rap. Like, you gotta, you know, rapping is, you saying it with your chest, regardless of whether or not it's something that's positive or whether or not it's something that's, you know, completely feeding an image or whatever the case may be. You're there to say it confidently, right? But I feel like what happens often is that we do become unbalanced and we spend too much time feeding our ego. So when you talk about it being yourself and self-conscious and self,
Yes.
right? And once you're constantly feeding self, that's where when you start to discuss things like God tier, you can bastardize it and make it about you. So yeah, I'm God tier, as opposed to me defining it as being in the likeness of God and creating like God and creating in the purpose that God placed you here for and creating at the highest level that you can create at, right? That's a more humble way of being at that tier, right? But if you were to be looking at it from an ego standpoint, you would say, "Oh no, I'm above all. I'm special," right? Me being able to say all of us in this room are capable of doing this level thing if we identify, tap in, and spend the 10,000 hours it takes to master it, right? But if you just think you're special, you just think you're special, right? Or if you're gonna put so much weight on the fact that you tapped in and you found it and you did it, then what inspiration does that give the next person? How does the next person in the room say, "Oh, okay, I'm capable," if you make it about yourself, right? So I think that's where the separation of ego becomes a negative thing, right? You needed to, you needed to get in that cipher, right? You needed to
believe
separate
that
yourself. Like you
that
need
can.
that, you need to be able to, put your foot down. But at the same time, you have to be able to say, okay, I accomplished that. Now, let me figure out how this fits in to the rest of the world. Like it's not just for me, right?
Yeah.
I always believe your purpose is bigger than you. And you'll never figure that out if you're focused on your ego. It'll just be, oh, my purpose is, what's your purpose? To get money? Your purpose is to have the most awards, to be, like, what are you feeding? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that. And as you talk about purpose, I want to segue into the next topic. So, mental health. Because I think that who we really are, like our connection with our spirit, that is our mental health. If your spirit is disturbed, then you might have depression, or if your spirit is disconnected, you might have these mental health issues. So I feel like creating, as you said, which is connecting to the highest level of kind of what the alignment of what that God thing is, that's how we kind of heal our mental health. So I want to talk about how creating has been good for y'all's mental health.
You're a mental health professional, and there's, I think I try to explain this like we all are evolving, and we should all intentionally be trying to change every day. Every day we should be trying to get better. We should never be trying to get worse, right? We'd never aspire for anything less than the previous day. We're trying to evolve. We're trying to make it to another day. The goal is to become old, right? And so, I think if we want to contribute to focus on how we can have a healthy mental health, one of the things in mental health that they teach you is how to change. And you change by being intentional about the environments that you spend your time. You be intentional about the things that you eat, the things that you consume and listen to. Who you surround yourself with, because the environment and things and how you spend your time contributes to the thoughts in your head, and the thoughts in your head contributes to your attitude and the feelings that you have. And bad thoughts will contribute to bad feelings, and vice versa, right? But we learn to change our behavior by space, where we identify how we identify appropriate spaces, the thoughts, the feelings, the attitudes results into behavior. And then we also continue to evolve by how we interpret the response that people give us. So when we do good, we hear good, we receive good. We continue to do it again. However, if we do bad and we receive good, the confliction there, my mom always told me, math taught me that a positive and negative was always a negative. That's never going to be a good thing. So again, when you think about those spaces and environments that you uphold, the environment should positively reinforce you to do good and keep doing good. Otherwise, bad will only lead you to what's definitely not going to be God tier. You know what I'm saying? It's either God or what? It's the devil. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're doomed if you get positively reinforced from negativity. And that's just the reality of why we deal with the shit we do in society today. That's why the streets are winning in certain aspects that we don't want it. You know what I'm saying? That's why we have death and shootings and bad shit happening. Why? Because there's gratification around that. So if you want to change for the positive, it really starts, and it won't stop. It won't change if we don't put the emphasis first on the home. You can't build a healthy community if you got a fucked up home. So home starts first, community starts second, and then we can talk about neighborhoods. And then we can talk about schools. But we can't do that if the education doesn't start in the home first.
Okay. Yeah. And any thoughts on mental health and creating?
Go ahead, check one, check two. The mic.
Yep, there we go. All right. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's something very intrinsic about creating and, you know, and how that plays into your mental health. However, I tread lightly on that because one of the things about it is it's about maintaining the positivity in your creative process and creating from a positive space for a positive outcome. Because if you're doing it and you're doing it from a critical standpoint, right? You're criticizing yourself, or you're concerned about who's going to be critical of your creation and your artwork, which we all get caught up in, right? It's hard, especially in this day and age when you can't even just be a musician without being a content creator, because if you want to be able to get it to people, you got to be able to, you know, market it. And then you got the algorithms to deal with, the likes, and whether or not it's being seen. It can become very stressful for a creator. A lot of creators.
That's interesting, bro, because y'all know that a lot of artists create from dark spaces.
Yeah, but those
Pain
are
and shit.
That's true.
It went out again.
It's true that artists create from dark spaces, but those are not the types of dark spaces that artists create from, because those are voids, right? Dark spaces are experiencing life, right? Not just figure out how to be heard, right? That is, got a couple songs about it, but it's not typically what is.
Oh, batteries. You keep talking. Should we wait, or it'll just take a second?
You
Sorry.
want to take this mic?
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I think being stuck in these voids of trying to figure out how to be properly heard is can kind of just gridlock the mental health of an artist. So it's important to remember in this space and time why you're doing it, and knowing that whether it's 500 or 5,000, right? That catches your message, whether it's the content you created, whether it's a song you did, or whatever. Whoever it reached, it had your desire. It should have your desired impact, right? I'm not a big numbers guy, so I'm not so concerned. I'm not saying I'm not concerned, because your career, depends on, but I'm not as concerned about how many streaming numbers I have. But how I weigh my music now is based on how many people tell me they cried. If I have 6, 7, 8 grown men personally tell me they cried listening to my music, I know that the people I can't reach here, talk to, are impacted in the way that I intended for them to be impacted. You know what I'm saying? So those are the streams that I'm looking at, is like, what's streaming down, you know what I mean? Like that. So like, that's where my mind is at, like, with it, like, and I change, it's like, and that's the type of palpable impact that you want your music to have. So it's like, however far it reaches, that's what it's doing. Okay, it made you think about that. It made you think about that moment in time, or that grief you had, or it made you think about that victory you had. It made you think about that thing you overcame. Yeah. Cool. Like, now we're hitting on something, right? And that's positive for my mental health. So it's like, if I can focus on that and not focus on all the metrics, then I can renew and heal myself. You know what I mean? But if I allow myself to be, like, conflicted, then that's what I'm gonna have. I'm gonna have conflict. So
I like it. Made me think of your line, how does your art feel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't tell me how your
Heart feel.
don't tell me about how you don't ask me how your art feel. You know, tell me how your heart feel. Like, you know, like, cause what did you put into this? That what do you want me to get out of this? You know what I mean? Like, if you didn't go into this with a pure heart, you gonna ask me what I think of it.
Yeah, one of the most.
Are you really concerned about how I was impacted by it? Or you just want to know if I thought it was good?
Well, yo, I think you just want to be felt, bro. There's certain things that happen sometimes. I have tagged radio's music on certain story posts because and I think it piggybacks off this. It was one of the truest statements in the his most recent project. Just want to be felt. Like that's a real thing. We all feel it. We may not. We sometimes it may be hard to acknowledge it, but truthfully, we all just want to be felt. You just want to be loved.
No, absolutely.
You know?
Right. I mean, we go through and because we want to be felt so much, we'll chase and we'll force ourselves into these spaces, right? We'll force ourselves into these like tight spaces that are not made for us. You know what I mean? Because you just want to be a part of something. You know what I'm saying? You just want to say you impacted something. That's why I feel like, you know, we have all of these, like, on the internet now, we have all of these trolls and all of these people that just like go on the internet and they say anything to get engagement, reaction. Some people are doing it because they can make money. They figure out how to make money off of it. Some people are doing it just because they want to have a ripple effect of some sort somewhere. And they don't know how else to impact the world. Right? So I have no talent that I've cultivated. I don't know how to make goosebumps rise on anyone's arms when I speak. I don't know, you know, I don't, when I'm in person, I'm quiet, I'm shy, you know, because I'm real insecure. But behind this phone or behind this computer, I can say anything I want to say. Or I can make up a fake meme and do misinformation and put it into the world, and I can watch the world react, and now it's a whole thing. Like, it's a narrative now, right? And I get to watch it turn into other, and like, they may never even get credit for it, but they're happy with that because they figured out finally some way that they can impact the world.
Yeah.
But they don't care what damage it does. You know, they don't care what that ripple effect actually is, who drowns in it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't care about that. They just care about the fact that they was able to skip a rock across the goddamn water. You know what I mean? So I think that's also something that plays into our mental health. When we talk about album Stop Looking for Noise, the central theme is like, nigga, put your phone down. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more important shit to do because, you know, it's like we don't know what the intentions are. It's like, this is what I get for scrolling, because you don't know what the intentions of all of these things that are on our phone. We don't know it. This is a TV. It's a TV, right? But the crazy thing about this TV is it's a whole bunch of channels. You got a channel, I got a channel, you got a channel, you got a channel. Everybody that's on social media got a channel. We might have multiple channels. I got a bunch of channels, right? I got a bunch of channels on Instagram. I got a channel on Twitter. I got a you know what I'm saying? And we're all putting out our programming all day long. And all we're doing by scrolling our phones is just consuming programming. But we're consuming it from an unregulated source. Like TV, at least, they're going to say, we're not putting that on TV. You can't say that on TV. You only get to put your show on from 8 to 9. You get to do your show 24 hours a day. You can put up as many pieces of content as you want. And no one's really going to regulate it but so much. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the thing that we all have to be super careful of, is that, yes, people are creating all the time. And so people's creation and how they choose, because even if you so some people are putting bioflicks because it's somewhat based on their truth. Some people are doing documentaries. It's a little more based on their truth. Some people are doing comedy. Some people doing porn. Some people, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
anything.
whatever they want their page to be, right? You think it's a regular person. Even they doing. They're like, yo, they show you when they with their family and woo, 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 but they're not showing you. It's not everything,
Yeah.
right? So it's all a program. We're all programming every day. We're programming each other. So be mindful of what you're creating and what that programming is doing to the people that may be receiving it. If we did that, if we all were a little bit more thoughtful, all of our mental health would be a lot better.
Absolutely. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I
No,
know
that was really good. You said be mindful of what you're creating, and I think that leads into the final topic that I had, which is transmutation, or taking one thing and turning it into another, essentially giving it new life. So I thought what really inspired that topic, and what I think you do a wonderful job of that with, is Mama Joe's collection. So can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. Mama Joe's collection. My mom was she had lupus and she had other ailments, fibromyalgia, and lots of different things that created a lot of like pain and a lot of different health issues in my mom's life, like all her life, especially from while I was alive. So she was diagnosed, I think, with lupus, and like when she was like shortly after I was born. And so I seen my mom deal with a lot of health issues, but she did accomplished so much in her life, even with that. But as she got older and she wasn't able to get out and she wasn't able to do things, obviously we talk about mental health. You know, depression starts to set in, and needing to find something to keep her mind occupied, she started to pick up just randomly doing abstract art, just sitting at a table. And then it went from she's doing it so much at the table, just keeping her mind occupied, that she had to have a desk in a specific room. And then she's just pumping out art, right? And I'm thinking, this art is brilliant. She's thinking this is a bunch of trash, right? She's like, I'm not an artist. I've never been trained to be an artist, anything like that. And I'm like, that's fine, but that's not really what this is about. This is your expression, and it's very clear. And like, I would just see my mom, she'd be able to pull on like from all sorts of different cultures and like creating her own like color palettes, and just you could just see that this was like coming from inside her brain, right? Like this is not something you seen and mimic, like, oh, I saw a pretty picture and I can repaint that. You know what I mean? It was like, this could not exist from anyone else. So I would always look for ways to exhibit her art in places, or put her in spaces where she could see that her art was valuable. So I would take her like the Tuesday Verses. She sell pieces at Tuesday Verses, or I would have an art gallery in the front. You know, like we did art gallery at Gallery 5 one time, where we did a whole show in one room, and she had an art gallery in the front and sold art. I would have like websites and stuff like that, little mock-up websites and things. And it came to a point as I got into, you know, merchandising and doing different things and learning how to use different tools, that I started experimenting with imagery from her art and turning it into clothes. It started, she was in a physical rehab location for surgery, and I made a pair of socks with one of her pieces, and I brought her the socks, and she was like blown away, you know, that could be done. And so in the midst of that, I started to sit down and just start experimenting more with designing clothes. Went from hoodies to shirts to dresses to bathing suits, and I'm just really just sitting down there like trying my hand at it, you know. And I'm like calling my wife in. I'm like, "What you think of this?" And she's like, "Nah." She's like, "That's nice. It's fly." And I'm like, "I like it. I like it a lot." So I just kept doing it, and it got to a point of like, feeling like how I felt when I first started rhyming. And I was like, yo, designing clothes started to felt like writing raps. But in my mind, it was only to fuel her to make more art because she was getting to a point where, because she's getting older, arthritis is setting in. It's harder for her to do the art. She can't make it as well as she could a couple of years before, but it was still super important for her to keep making it. So what I would do is I would make the clothes and then I would take them down. I would take the designs downstairs so she could see them. And you know, she'd be blown away like, oh my gosh, you took this piece and turned it into this. And she couldn't, you know, it's like this, she couldn't even believe that was her art. So that's what drove me to launch Mama Jo's collection. And once it was like super well received, that was like another like shot in the arm. It was like, oh wow, like now you get to see these people, you know, and that was like a fantasy to me. Like one day I'll get to walk around somewhere and just see people walking around with my mom's art on them, right? Like before we launched, that was like the thought. And now it's like, I've seen that. I just like I just see it all the time. It was 2 people in here last night that had my mom, that had Mama Jo's collection.
I actually had some swimming trunks. I just left the gym. I was swimming and I had swimming trunks on.
And that's just mind blowing to me because people just really walk around and just looking at my mom's art. This is stuff she made in the basement. So it's like, and then I talk about somebody that's on God tier. I look at Dapper Dan is God tier, streetwear fashion, you know what I mean? And I think within the first month of Mama Jo's collection, I like had shot him a DM of the website, just on some shot in the dark. Like, I don't expect him to open it, you know what I mean? He opens it and he goes to the website and he hits me back and he's like all fire emojis. It was like, I love it. I love the concept and all. And I'm like, bruh, you can't tell me anything now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Cam Newton's baby mom is wearing your stuff, right?
Yeah, man, don't call her that.
I mean, I don't know her. I don't
Jasmine Brown.
I don't know who she is.
Jasmine Brown,
Yo,
a.k.a. Watch Jazzy.
Who is that?
She is a comedian. She is a very talented young lady.
Yeah, respect to her. Yo, respect to her. I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, respect to her, but that's credit to the fact that I was looking through the gram and I was like,
yeah.
I was like, who is this word?
She's a very big supporter of Mama Jo's collection. I've never had to send her a dime to wear the clothes or to post it or anything like that.
You just send it all. How did she get introduced to it though?
Yo, all right, so I was going to tell you.
No,
you're good. I'm glad this is a perfect segue. You're doing your job. You're being Randy Wilson right now. The crowning moment for me before my mom passed away was we did Richmond we did Richmond Fashion Week, and we had a show where Mama Jo's collection was featured on the runway. It was the first time we did the runway on the roof of the Hoff. And my mom was able to be present to see, the models do the runway in her clothes and, and all of that. And she was just like elated. So like they did the last run where all the models come down and then I was able to like wheel my mom in the wheelchair and like have her go, and she, did her spins and things like that. And,
had her moment.
Yeah, and she had her moment, right? It was like, it was like, because it's one thing for her to be at home and me show her pictures of people wearing it or me showing her designs. It's another thing to like see it in that space.
And feel, again, the
there's
love
other
from
fashion lines and there's people that are respected in the fashion world and these models, they are excited to wear my artwork. You know what I'm saying? So I remember I sent... So every now and then I would reach out to people that I just thought would be cool to rep, the clothing line. So I remember I sent her that video of my mom, interacting with the models. And that was like that. She saw that and that was like, she was like, yeah, like I love it. She went to the website and she's like, I love all of these pieces. And I would just start sending stuff and she'd wear it. She'd take pictures in it. She'd be hanging out in it. And, it just, kind of just been cool since then. And there's a few people that, are like that. And, it's all of those types of interactions are what have kind of like strengthened my resolve. Which I'll
That's
admit,
God right there, for real.
Yeah.
Think about it, the tear of that.
I was literally that in my. I was like, "That's God."
That's
Tears.
God.
It's
Yeah.
just said at the same time. You was in
it's
my
like
head.
so.
Yeah.
But it's tough because when people bring up Mama Joe's collection, I feel a sense of guilt because since my mom passed, it's been. I'm not gonna say I hate to tie it directly to that, but I know that's the source of it. Like it's difficult for me to move, to design, and to release and promote it in the way that I did prior to her passing. And it's not because I don't have enough art. It's really, I think, because what drove me was showing her my designs, right? And being excited about that exchange. And then also seeing her make art and seeing something that she was doing, and I could see it halfway done and be like, let me get that.
That surprises me.
You know.
That surprises me a little bit because when I listen to you pose that question, I would only assume, without him giving that answer, that by continuing to push Mama Joe's collection was continuing
Her legacy.
Her legacy.
No, 100%. 100%. That's why I started that part of the conversation with saying I feel a sense of guilt because I don't. It's not to say that it's not finite. That's just where I've been, you know. So it's like that. There's not a day that goes by that it doesn't strike me to I should be spending some time doing this. But also it doesn't help that I have 50,000 other things that I'm doing, right? So it's like for the thing that so that's where it gets back to saying, you know, purpose. This is a purposed thing that you created. It doesn't stop with your mom being gone because the purpose was to move her art around the world, right? And also with doing that, move her message around the world. And and I feel like that's, for me, I thought about this. I was like, you know, I need to also look at how you go about presenting the collection to the world and what you tie it to, you know, and tying the story together so that people can get a firm understanding of all that this is. And it's not just me making images of my mom's art, but who was my mom? What was it that caused her to make this art? You know, because there's other people that are experiencing those things and need to be inspired in the way that she was inspired. They need to find that thing. They need to find that abstract art that's going to keep them from being depressed. It's going to keep them from focusing on their pain. It's going to keep them from focusing on their lack and the things that they can't do, and reaching around them and in whatever environment they are in and creating, because just like we started, our purpose here is to create. That's what we've been put on earth to do, is to create in all sorts of different ways. So for me, it helps me find a different talent and a different craft at clothing designing. I never considered myself this super fashion forward person. I have good taste, you know, and that's what allowed me to be able to make clothes that look good, right? But I'm not a person that like studies all of this. Like, I'm not that guy, right? It's a very innate thing, and that's why I feel
labels
like it's a
conceal
gift.
more than they reveal, man. It's not even about what you call yourself or how you label yourself.
It's not.
It's really about you defining it, you know. I hope you feel motivated to do some more Mama Joe's collection.
No, absolutely,
Coming from this.
absolutely, yeah. So I said
feel
all
like-
that to say
I feel
why,
like her spirit is
for
in
those that don't see it move how it was moving before, just bear with me.
Understand.
But I mean,
Yeah,
her spirit-
bear with
her
me.
spirit
We
is-
on the way.
I knew we were gonna see each other today. Had no reason for why. When I put my hand in the shorts drawer to go to the gym, I pulled out Mama Joe's collection shorts today when I went to the gym.
No, it's love. Man. It's love. I mean, I've seen people post about it.
And no disrespect to Cam Newton, the chick. I didn't know. I don't know disrespect. I hope she sees this.
Shout
though.
out to Watch Jazzy.
I mean, because that really incredible. I was like, yo, how did she get there? I was like, yo,
Yeah,
that's
no,
crazy. Because I was watching, first off, I'm from North Carolina. So she had the jersey on when she did a stand-up recently, and like I didn't know who she was. And I went to her page because it was like a viral clip, and I saw, no, or maybe radio shared something in the story, and I went to her page. But either way it went, I was like, yo, that's a reach. Like he reached, he got her wearing his clothes. That's pretty hot.
Yeah.
That's hard. Well, I mean, I feel like both of you guys have influence and power, and you're very inspirational to those around you. So kudos to you and all that you do, and thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I
No, thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like, and just like Randy said, flowers to you.
Thank you.
Because I do a lot of interviews. I do a lot of podcasts, and I would probably say I don't know how many more insightful conversations I've had than this one.
Yeah, because we talk shit.
Yeah. It gets into, it gets into specifics.
It's
and
my podcast,
rapping,
brother. We done did a few. This was cool to share.
But this
the
is
stage.
more like this was up
real.
here the
Yeah.
whole time. Like this
Psyc
is here and
101.
here the
Yo,
whole time.
you got. I mean, the space is dope. The atmosphere that you create through your conversations, your preparation,
and you,
it's dope. The
and
end
you
is there.
Scummy's cousin.
Yes.
Yo, this is now y'all don't understand. That was my brother. Rest in peace. You know what I mean? And that's a very, that loss shaped me and people around me in a lot of ways. That was something that really, there's a handful of losses that play a part in who I am. And that is absolutely one of them. If you listen to my music, anything that's on streaming and long before it, I'm speaking on Isan. So much love to you for that. That's if Nick was here, he'd probably be shedding a tear. I've been real close a couple times tonight. So shout out to East Coming.
Well, thank y'all again. Thank y'all so much. And thank y'all for coming to and joining us tonight. And this has been Psych 101. And I'll catch y'all next time.